And it is the Christmas holiday edition of the General Manager's Update. The Christmas break, 32-3 the Sherwood Park Crusaders are right now, heading into the Christmas holiday season. General Manager Kyle Chase, what is the most special thing in your eyes about this 32-3 start?
Well, I think just the group that we have. It's a really, diverse group, and everyone brings something different to the table, and just the focus that they have this year on being prepared from the beginning of practice to the end, to the beginning of games to the end of games. We're starting to tighten it up a little bit defensively, and that's nice to see that we're not allowing as many goals as we had in the past. And everybody's come together as a group, so it's fun to watch. The coaches have done an amazing job, so pretty happy.
Last year, your goaltender set a team record for all-time least goals against, and right now the lowest goals against in the entire AJHL, with top 3 in both goals against and in save percentage. What impresses you the most right now about your goaltenders?
Yeah, I think the guys are prepared, and they're ready from the beginning of the game to when the puck drops. And whereas in the past, I feel like maybe we're watching a little bit and not battling for sight lines, that type of thing. And and talking to our goalie coach Curtis Muka, he's pretty confident that both goalies are doing what they can to get better on a daily basis, especially when he has them out at their goalie sessions and their focal points, and Curtis does a really good job with that, so they are prepared.
So let's assess the defensive side. You've been able to make some mixing and matching, bringing in Billy Soa and Vinny Prospel, and obviously Reed Irwin from last year was a huge trade. Now, when you look at the way things are on the back end, how would you kind of assess the way that has boiled down for your team?
Well, unfortunately, we're at 9 defensemen, and that's not probably the perfect scenario, and everyone knows you need to get down to 23 players. We're at 24 currently, and we're in a situation where we're going to figure this out over the next quickly short thereafter the trade freeze is done, and we're gonna figure out where we're at. I know Matt Shatsky's played forward the last few games and done very well, and so there's a guy that when we're banged up front that we know that we know that he's a valuable asset to have because he can play both front and back.
It is the Christmas season, and I imagine for the general manager, do you get excited for this time of year when you can mix and match and create a roster? January 10th coming around the corner, that's probably the worst kept secret. Not that you want to send players out or bring players in any case, stretch of the imagination, but is this an exciting time for you when you're looking at compiling the roster with the right pieces in place?
It's a nervous time because when you're 32-3, I'm not entirely sure that how much tweaking we should be doing. I know we'd like to add some pieces here and there, but we really only have one play left, and everyone knows that. And we're not going to change a Granny Smith apple for a Macintosh apple. So we're going to go out and get a different kind of fruit, so to speak. So that's really where we're at. So we're not looking to add a piece that we already have. We're looking to add something that's going to be a game changer for us, and that's just being fair, Dave, to the people that have, especially the players that have invested their time thus far into something that we feel that we're proud of right now.
Sure. Yeah, you brought in Blake Sadlowski this year. We mentioned Billy Soa, the trade for Brett Wheatchester and future considerations that brought in Jacob Kendall. Obviously, Zafir Rauji having success down in Olds. What does it mean to you when you as a general manager can see players come in and have success and then leave and have success? And the second part of that question is, which acquisition bringing in to you in your eyes has been the biggest surprise or biggest bonus for your organization?
Well, so the one thing that the guys are having success when they go elsewhere, whether it's Zaf going into Olds or Brett into Camrose, is we have really good players, and you have to be proud of the fact that your coaches have done a good job with them, and they're good players, and your program's at the point where when you're moving a player out that maybe doesn't necessarily fit perfectly for where we're headed or what we're doing, they do become a major contributor in another organization. That just bodes well and speaks volumes to how deep we are. And I think that it's, I don't think that's doesn't make sense to anyone, I think they would understand that. So having those guys step in and go to other places and be major contributors, it makes us feel proud that we, are on the right track with how we're recruiting, and B, that we've done a good job with them, especially the coaching staff. And as your second question, when it comes to who's surprised me the most, I don't think anybody's surprised me the most, but I'll tell you what, I can elaborate on a few of those acquisitions. The most recent ones in Bill and Jacob. Billy is very smart, and yeah, there's times when, he's playing the offside, so he's playing left side on a right-handed shot, and it's hard for defensemen. Sometimes you get caught in certain positions where you're not, your stick on puck isn't in the perfect area and that type of thing. But in saying that, he's been really good, and he's been a guy that, we're happy we have. Jeff thinks there's a lot there, and in a sense of being able to work with him, and he's really smart. He makes some subtle plays that are really good. And as far as Jacob goes, he took him time to get some traction with how we play. We play very fast, and it's just a different style than Camrose would play. So now he's starting to fit it in, and he's starting to find it. He got 2 goals again yesterday. I think he has 7 or 8 points in 9 games with us, and he's a bigger body, and he's going to be, you'll see more of Jacob. I know in the playoffs when it becomes a little bit more of a north-south game and not as much pond hockey as it sometimes becomes in the regular season, and that's not a shot at it. It's just he plays a different style, and he can play heavy, and he's tough, and I know he puts a little bit of fear in the opposing players, so that's nice to have too.
It's a good playoff setup for sure. I want to elaborate on a point you made there when you talked about this is the kind of hockey we play with players heading out and having great careers. Jared White just announced committing to University of Alabama, Huntsville, and other commitments are in the works. From what I understand, players are starting to have conversations with NCAA schools that nothing is finalized yet. And on top of that, you sent 3 players to the World Junior A Challenge, 2 more going to the Top Prospects game as well. What is it about the culture right now that it seems like Sherwood Park Crusaders hockey, that it's been there for a while, I imagine, but now it's starting to really come to the limelight?
Well, I think just from Adam to Jeff to our program and all the layers that people don't see in our program, whether it's the education piece, the sports psychology piece, the chapel, just everything that we have involved, from and the billet coordinators to the volunteers to all the people behind the scenes that nobody sees, like yourself and Escott, and we have so many good people on board now, and it's I think when you start recruiting really high-end players and you get quality individuals, and I can go all the way back to Arjun Atwell and Jacob Franczak and Will Zapernick and those guys that we were recruiting many years ago, and we got those players, and and everyone uses this word, and I hate it, but it's culture, but there's, it's overused. I don't hate the word. I just think it's overused, and it's one of those things where, it's not entirely wrong, and we're trying to build something here, and they treat the young guys really well, and the new players coming into our program, everyone's well received here. I know Blake Sadlowski, as an example, he came here and he was, he wasn't broken, but he was one of those guys that had lacked confidence, and now he comes in and he scored again. I think yesterday he scored again, and he's one of those guys that he's a bigger body, and And we're going to need guys like him. And, Bryce Bader's on the shelf right now, and he's a big body. And Caden Bryant's a big body, and they're on the shelf. And those guys bring a lot, especially Bader on the physical side of things. You notice it when he's not in the lineup. So, we're happy with the room that, Arjun and Zaf and Reed and all those guys, or Zaps rather, have created. And those guys have created a really good environment for younger players to learn. And then, when you get Whitey in, you bring a guy like Whitey in who's just been amazing for us. And I really don't know where we'd be without him. And he comes in and he's so positive and he plays the game the right way. And you watch it on a nightly basis. It's, it's hard to knock what he's doing. And so when you see a guy like that get to where he wanted to be and get a full ride, and he's just, you're so happy for him, right? Because everybody in the room is too, there, because he's the quality of person he is. So pretty happy.
Yeah, it's very well said. You mentioned a number of names in there, and one I think that has really risen to the limelight lately in the spotlight. Carter Savoy, obviously 10 game-winning goals, the highest in North America. None of the 10 Canadian leagues nor the USHL does anyone have anywhere near that. And we could talk at length about a number of players as well, but maybe with the eyeballs on him and Mike Betting heading into the 2020 NHL draft, what do you see from them that is so special from a general manager's side that maybe on the outside we don't get to see?
Well, I think yesterday it was another example of the, let's go back even to the Bonnyville game. We have a lot of depth. Carter scores a huge goal for us, especially the shorthanded goal. Mike sees the ice as good or better than anybody on the back end. We've changed our power play a little bit in a sense and opened some things up for everybody, and especially for, guys like Zaps and Arj, and just watching Carter and Mike and how much they've matured over, even the 12 months from last December at this time. And the contributors they've become vocally with the group, not just on the ice, but off the ice. And, they're well respected from their peers, and they should be, and they've done a great job. And just watching those two guys, and, Savvy scores some goals where you're like, holy smokes, right? And people forget they're 17. That's the other part. So there's a lot of pressure on them, and I've heard things like, well, some people come to maybe one game and they're like, well, I didn't like the way they did this or that. And, that's the problem sometimes with, whether it's, pro teams watching a guy too many times or fans, you get nitpicking, and then you forget how good it was when they are not here, right? And you become, picking away at stuff, and it's easy to say, hard to do, but it's really one of those things where I think, we're pretty fortunate, to have that group with us right now, and they're a big part of our team too. So we're really lucky, and like I said, we work hard at what we do at our craft too, and I think people don't maybe understand that entirely, to how much work goes into it. But especially, you're around a lot, and you see Adam and Jeff on a day-to-day basis, whether it's morning skates where they have the guys out, in the morning on game days, or our practices and how thorough they are, and the goalie, coaching from Mooks when he comes out and has our goalies out, and guys come out early and they're in full gear shooting on our goalies, and they're all a pretty cohesive group. So we're real lucky, and and just to add back to that, the acquisition side of it, whether it's Friese or Woodsky, or bringing in guys like Bader and Sidlowski and those guys, when you get, when you bring all those guys in, and they all fit in, it's a testament to how we're doing things as an organization. And whether it's Kevin Love, our president, through to the rest of us, we like to do things the right way, and Kevin allows us to do our jobs, and we're pretty fortunate.
Definitely. Well, a couple more questions here for you. The one of them being, obviously, we talked about before, heading into Jan 10, heading past that into the second half of the season. 44 wins last year, 32 already right now. What are you expecting to see on the back half of this stretch from this Crusaders team? And heading into the playoffs, obviously the secret is no secret. You get past the Spruce Grove Saints into the finals, anything can happen. And I imagine that is part of the formula too, right?
Well, for sure. One of the things is we don't want to look far ahead. We got to look at day to day. For us, we've got some really tough games starting on the 29th when we get back with Spruce. They're not easy games. They're still, like we've always talked about this, they're the incumbent, and they're the gauge. So we have to get through Spruce Grove and Bonnyville and some really good teams. Sean's done a really good job in Whitecourt as well. And these guys, Eric, in Drayton, they beat Spruce Grove the other night too, and as well as Sean. And those guys are, they're not just turn on the clock and and the game's over and you get 2 points. And they're hard games to win. And I think we have a lot of respect for a lot of teams and organizations, and everyone else is trying that you're playing against too. And the other piece to that is they get ramped up to play the first place team. Then we have Brooks twice in January, and that's not going to be a picnic either. And we have some really tough games. Drumheller is the hardest game sometimes to win, is that game in Drum, that single in Drum. We talk about the single in Drum, the game in Drum, the game in Brooks, the Fort Mac games. Bonnyville's a tough place to win. There's not a lot of layups around here, and you go into those rinks focused, and we have to, because every everybody wants to come back, and if you're a team that's under 500 and you beat the Sherwood Park Crusaders this year, you're pretty happy that, we played Sherwood Park and we beat them. It's a confidence boost for everybody, and they're trying to gain that traction too, and you have to respect that. So, and we do. So I think it's one of those things where, if you're asking me for a number of wins in our remaining amount of games, win as many as we can. That's our job, and we can't take our foot off the gas because we got two teams chomping at the bit that want to finish first and get that bye too.